Hey, and welcome to the season one finale for the Ace Attorney Anime podcast. And this time I know which episode I'm talking about, but join me as always. We have Shounen Ouji here.
Hello, hello.
Quick little update. So, for people who watch the main channel, we're joining Corona joined the Straw Hats, and for people curious about part 2, that's still gonna happen. But as far as part 3 goes, currently we're gonna take a bit of a break just so I can catch up on Dressrosa, so I know what happens with it. And around the same time, Shonen Ouji's doing school stuff, so stuff kind of works out. But don't worry about this podcast, because how simple it is, it still should go on, basically, because it's not that difficult to do compared to a What If. But with the announcements out of the way, we can get right into talking about Turnabout Big Top, actually.
So, do you want to say a bit to it first? Because you've been saying for a while, and then...
Oh, yes, I do want to say this when we get into this. This is my favorite case, basically.
Mhm.
Like, I like the way things are presented. The main antagonist is not someone you would expect as immediately, at least how the games frame it. And I do like the interactions with all the characters, and in the games, what the best part, I think, is how the difficulty was ramped up a little bit, because with the clown guy, you know him from the episode, right?
Yeah.
So, in the games, it's far worse, because if you press him on questions and he says jokes instead, the judge basically gives you strikes, like, immediately. And it's a very difficult
That's
case.
really annoying.
But that's what kind of makes it fun, because he has the best dialogue in the game. So if you want to just screw around in that case, you kind of can. But you could probably tell from the episode, that's kind of what he was. They just didn't do it all the way. Because somewhere.
The one awkward thing with him is that he would make, obviously, a lot of jokes, and so I don't know how they did it in the dub, but at least in the translations and then what was being said, it felt like they did their best to sort of mimic the puns he was making, but aside from that, his puns didn't really translate well.
You might like it better in the dub, because especially a comedy series, I noticed it's a lot easier to get what's going on, unless the voice actor is really engaging for me. I don't watch sub too often due to kind of my disability, but the times I do, I'll say Dio's voice actor for the Japanese dub always hooks me. His delivery is just that good with how he does it, basically. Because with how it's done in the Japanese dub versus the English dub's a lot more reserved and more kind of menacing type of tone, to me at least. But the Japanese, it seems more like a goofy, kind of more insane type of thing, more like the Joker for some reason. At least how he comes across to me.
You're talking about what, Dio?
Yeah, from part 3.
Yeah. I wouldn't know. I've not watched JoJo's Part 3, but yes, and
well, I only know it from the "You're Approaching" meme that was being done all over. I believe a couple years ago.
Yeah, Dio's voice is definitely at times very just eccentric.
But yeah, to get on with the actual case, basically. Essentially, what happens is that the owner of the circus, he's basically assassinated, and they blame the magician dude, which I believe his name was Galactica, if I got this correctly.
Yes, Max Galactica, I think his name was, but it was definitely Galactica.
Oh, it's Maximilian Galactica.
Yeah, but that was his stage name. He had another name, but that was his stage name.
Well, that's all that's important. We don't care about his real name for this show. That's the same thing with Clown Dude. We literally just call him Clown Dude.
Yeah, right.
That's how important he is.
Mm-hmm.
But the setting's basically like he was there having a meeting with them, and then like when he walked outside, he was basically murdering people, think it was him because he was like the last person who was talking with them, basically. And it kind of feels like it's him at first because like everyone at the circus doesn't really like him. Like it's a very unlikable character in a sense. At least that's how I got portrayed.
This one was interesting because I forget which case it was, but there was one case where I thought it did a really good job of painting it as if like the guy probably did it, or you felt like he did it. In this one, it wasn't so much that you thought Galactica did it, because I didn't really feel like you didn't get like a bad guy vibe from him. You just got like he's kind of like a tool. Like he kind of just thinks he's better than everyone, but it doesn't feel like a murderer. But the way they set up the facts, there was no other way until you started to investigate and find out the other facts. So it was a bit different, but I guess that's...
I would say the games did it better because of the investigation element, because if you only went by dialogue you're given, it just really seems like Maximilian was the guy who did it, or at least he had an accomplice do it for him, knowing how egotistical he was. Like he could have hired someone to go.
Wait a minute. Say that last part again.
Oh, I was saying, like, to me it felt like it could have been him, even if it wasn't him direct. Like he hired someone else to do it, potentially. Because if you go with like dialogue in the game, because how pacing works differently, because like you get to talk with them, then you go investigate. It kind of gives it like a different vibe with it, because once you look at the clues and stuff, it kind of makes sense it's not him. But there could have been a possibility he paid off someone to do it, because he would have had motive.
Right.
At least that's how I felt, because like this is one of the few cases where someone Phoenix is defending could have like a reasonable motive to murder him, basically.
Yeah, right.
It's a bit of a stretch, honestly.
One question I had was there a use of parrots in the game? Because I noticed Acro had parrots. So I thought maybe part of the investigation would have been like the parrots saying something. Like I remember, wasn't that part of the Edgeworth case, like at the lake?
That
like
was
somebody
part
was
of the
shot.
Case. You're correct about that.
Huh?
You're correct about that, because Phoenix didn't interrogate the parrot in not the L6 case, but a case with Edgeworth, basically.
Right. So was that a part of this case in the game? Like, was there anything where like you could get the parrot, Acro's parrots, to say anything, or birds, or whatever you had?
I don't recall, but I believe we could check the anime changes later here and see if that was the case. Because I feel like that wasn't what I was looking for when I played the game initially. Because I was like, well, I was kind of in that mindset, well, it's Phoenix, right? It can't be Maximilian. So it's like, there has to be somebody else who had to do it.
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of like how you reach when you figure out it's Acro, basically, because you kind of brought it up.
Hold on, say that again.
I was saying that's kind of like how you reached the idea Acro was the guy who did it.
Right.
But I will say, like, I was someone who initially thought it wasn't him because I just didn't think he could pull it off, you know?
Yeah, I guess I thought the explanation for the way he did it was kind of weird in the anime. Like, the way he murdered the ringmaster was really, like, I don't know, I just thought it was weird that he was going to murder somebody by dropping a blunt object on their head. Like, I thought it was kind of messed up. Like, not to give people advice on how to kill people, but if you're going to kill somebody, like, at least get it done and over with. Like, if you dropped a blunt object on somebody's head, that's kind of a not so nice way to do it, because, I mean, what if you don't kill them, you know? Like, it's not guaranteed. He was, like, a couple floors up, but still. I just thought it was a kind of, like, a barbaric way to kill someone. Just drop something on their head, like a cartoon.
Well, to me, there's a lot of ineffectiveness dropping a blunt item like that, because the main thing is that if he timed it wrong, it could have just fell, like, right before he showed up, potentially. Or if he moved just slightly, just away from it.
Well, that was the point of the trunk, right? Was he was like, okay, I'm going to set up this elaborate scheme where I'm going to get them to open a really heavy trunk. So then they're spending all this time so that I can, if I just aim it perfectly, I'll get them.
Which to me felt kind of stupid, because a lot of someone else just grabbed a trunk and moved it.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh, what's this doing here? He just pick it up and put it away somewhere.
It was definitely probably the most elaborate murder that I can remember, because he went to all this trouble to make it look like it was Galactica. Because, I mean,
well, to me,
conceivably,
it showed kind of like his intelligence. To me, the fact that you had to set up all this convolutedness just to frame someone like that.
That was part of why I liked this case so much, was because with all the cases, there's really two elements to how good it is. The actual facts of the case and, like, the characters in the case, and then the stuff we see with, like, Phoenix Wright and, like, the main characters. Because, like, in this case, there wasn't too much with Phoenix and the other main characters, but it was very fact heavy, and it was, like, a really, for the most part, really well written case, or well organized case. And Acro was part of that, because I thought Acro was a really interesting character.
And I do like that this case actually introduces, like, towards the end, actually Edgeworth shows up again, at least as far as how the setup was.
Yeah, it was interesting how he...
It adds some mystery to, like, why did he come back after, like, Wayne mentioned, like, Prosecutor Edgeworth's dead, basically.
Well, it was interesting how he, like, sent the message, the verdict will be decided at the end.
That is true as well.
I'm trying to think what else.
Who was your favorite character in this case?
I would probably say Acro again, because I just think he was a really, not, like, super nuanced character, but he was, like, dynamic enough, because he comes off as, like, a really nice guy, and arguably by the end of it, he's still like at its core a nice character, but he's not easy to read. He's not like a flat character. He's not simple. Like he has different contrasting motivations, and I thought his motivation for the murder was interesting because he even says he's like, I didn't necessarily blame you, but I just couldn't take seeing you be so happy after my brother was put in the hospital, which is like a pretty not nuanced, but like interesting enough motivation, I thought.
Well, I feel like out of most like characters for Phoenix Wright, he would be at least my top 10 as far as motivations for what he did technically.
Yeah, right.
Because to him, he felt like he had enough justification for what he was doing. I'm sure some people who have like family members or someone, if they lost a loved one like on the workplace or something like that, then there
Yeah,
could be
right.
some sort of sympathy towards that idea.
I
Not
guess so.
justification for murder, but more like you can understand why he did it.
Yeah. I guess I would have to say the most useless character and the most pointless character in this arc, this case, was the ventriloquist. I can't remember his name, but like, other than
Oh
the
yeah,
fact
I
that
hated that guy. He was
like,
I wish he
other
was
than,
the murderer because how much I didn't like
well,
throughout the
like
game.
other than the fact that he was an eyewitness, like he really didn't serve any purpose. Like, for example, with the clown guy, right? Like he started the circus with the ringmaster, so he had an interest in like being a part of the case. And even the character, the daughter, like she was a part of the case because it was like in a way her fault. Um, so with the ventriloquist though, aside from like his quirk of like being a ventriloquist, his only point in being the case is that he was an eyewitness. So you could conceivably just swap him with any other character, and the case would be completely the same.
I guess for me, my favorite character is gonna be Mo, or the clown dude, because
Mm-hmm.
he had a good setup for who he was. He kind of explained he helped start the circus. He had a good ties with Regina, basically kind of taking up somewhat of a leadership role, basically, after their ringmaster died, unfortunately. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of liked his elements for comic relief. Now I know earlier you talked about off the podcast didn't like the way his comedy is delivered in the sub for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me, I'll say for watching it dubbed, I really enjoyed his comedy. So maybe it could be a delivery thing, but it's kind of iffy for that matter. At least how I see
Yeah,
it.
man.
Because the thing is, comedy is subjective, and we just have to deal with that.
Well, I think there is just a matter of whether it translated well. Because like if you do dub, you just rewrite the joke and you make it work. But like if you're doing the sub, like you're kind of just making it up. So like it doesn't necessarily work.
Well, the big thing that I think with Phoenix Wright, in my opinion, is that if it's screwed up with the dialogue, that would just basically just screw things around for me. But I think the main reason why I think it's a really like good mid type of show is because I keep a lot from the game, so it's very difficult to have like a bad episode, like not as much technically. It's like if it was bad, and it was probably bad in the games, most likely. That's usually how
Yeah,
it
that
goes.
makes sense.
It makes it possible for skippability theoretically, but the thing is, you would still have to know some nuance, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah, right.
But
But that's everything I think I have to say about the case.
That's kind of it as well. Like, I think once you get to know who Phoenix and Maya are, like, their characters are fairly predictable what they're doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I do like their dynamic. I think it's pretty cute that they're kind of just like buddies, and like they kind of just do like stupid stuff together.
I think that's what makes them work, though, because kind of like with like a SpongeBob Patrick, you know, it's like you kind of know what they're gonna do, and they might do like a few different things.
Yeah, right. Like
It's funny with them. It's like if they have a bad episode, then it might be worthwhile skipping as well. It's a very interesting setup. It depends how well they're written to an extent.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. I guess we could get some anime change if we want to.
All right, let's do it.
There was a few brief references. There was a reference to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, actually, and
Okay, that must
that's
have been.
basically what
I was going to
that's
say
what
that
the
must
clown
have
said.
been in the dub because I don't remember seeing that in the subtitle.
Well, this was in the English version of the game, so that's
in the
my
game.
assumption. That's probably what happened. They probably switched the references from the Japanese, gets more pun centric, and just did references with the clown dude.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because if you check the pop culture references, a lot of them are just related to the clown switching up a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Like instead of the team, you get the C team for like clown, I guess.
That's funny.
In the game, he said, in the West Clown, like Philadelphia. So instead of Philadelphia. It's alright. They're just like decent references. Or when Phoenix says, "I'll be back," referencing the Terminator.
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's funny.
when he. Oh wait, never mind. That was Maya said that. I said the wrong person. And apparently, Acro in the English one or references Yogi Bear saying his catchphrase, which is very weird.
That is so bizarre.
Well, it kind of makes sense because the games came out early 2000s, so they only could do references a bit further back, technically, because there's not much stuff out yet.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, now we can get the anime changes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, one change I did like is that Pearl Faye is completely gone in the anime. Like, just not there for the opening for the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because my issues with Pearl is that she feels way more tacked on than Maya does. At least Maya feels like she's supposed to be there. And Pearl's just kind of here, you know.
Yeah, I kind of like that because I feel like she wouldn't.
Oh, you actually like it? Okay.
I feel like she wouldn't have contributed anything. Like, I feel like she's only there if there's something to be contributed, like about Maya. Like, excuse me, in the next case. But in this case, like,
I guess they could have gone to the circus together. I guess that could have been fine.
Say that again. You broke up.
I was saying, I guess they could have just gone to the circus together or something. That could have made sense while she was here.
Yeah, like they could have worked her in, but I just feel like it works that she's not a part of it, because I don't really see what she would contribute other than just being there.
Let's see. When watching the show of the Big Berry Circus with Maya, Phoenix is seen wearing the heart sweater that he wore in Turnabout Memories. I also like that one. It's a nice reference.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. While Max Galactica was arrested, a large cutout in a circus entrance is smeared with black paint. After Galactica is acquitted, the cutout is replaced with one featuring all prominent members of the Big Berry Circus. I also like that change. It's a nice aesthetic change.
Mm.
But it kind of makes sense why they didn't do it in the games, because of limitations. It was DS games at the time, so you can only fit in so many sprites realistically if you really want to.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. It's the end of anime. Phoenix and Maya met a ring thrower and Nutter and a cook. The three believing that Max is guilty because Max had a bad relationship with them. None of these people actually appear in the game, surprisingly. So these are all like anime exclusive characters, but in all honesty, they help though, because they help the narrative a lot better, trying to point the narrative against them technically. Because you have three new characters basically saying that was him. If you were just watching the anime only, basically.
Yeah, right.
So I will say in that aspect, the anime is a bit better trying to point fingers at Max than the games, because you have such a limited amount of characters to use, technically.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Money the Monkey appears earlier in the investigation, stealing Leon's old vest before Regent scares him off. And Phoenix and Maya are led to Akro's room due to Mike's theft of his attorney badge, rather than the retrieval for Regina's stage costume like in the games.
Okay.
I don't... Either one's fine, because it still fits the narrative of what you need to do.
Yeah, I don't really care about that one, to be honest.
It's more like it's a different thing that's stolen. Probably something easier to animate. Phoenix's badge got stolen. It's like, it kind of makes more sense to me because of how shiny it is, I guess. So it's like, hey, shiny thing.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. The entirety of the love triangle subplot between Regina, Max, Ben, and Trollo has been removed. Honestly, that was a good thing. Like, I'm happy they got rid of that. That does not hold up well, like, at all.
Yeah, I feel like it just would have complicated the case and taken away time from the important stuff, and I think it was a good change.
See, Trollo's ring to Regina is still present, having been stolen by money, and remains a plot point to his and Ben's testimony, but otherwise no bearing on the plot. See, in turn, the heated argument between Max and Trill resulting in the assault of Ben with Bell is an unknown cause. It simply plays a role in being another example of circus performers disdain for Max. So the reasoning for the love triangle kind of makes sense, but as far as my personal take, I just don't want it.
Yeah, I feel like the case works without it.
And to give some context for people who may or may not know, Regina is a minor. So obviously for American viewers or people who played the games back in the day, obviously looking back on it now, like as an adult, it's very weird. You know?
Well, how old was Ben, the younger brother?
He might have been around her age. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, I think the only weird part is Trillo, right? Because how old is Trillo?
I'm gonna check Ben first.
Okay. Because my understanding was Ben and...
Well, the ventriloquist guy is Ben, actually.
Who's Acro's
Oh,
younger
yikes,
brother?
he's 31.
Oh, that's a big yikes. Who was Acro's
Okay.
younger brother?
That was bad.
That was Ben?
Bat. Because
Oh,
Acro and
Bat. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Because I got the impression he was the same age as Regina.
I can check that.
So, like, there's nothing weird about that. I think it was just the weird part was Trill being like, oh, I want to marry this girl.
I mean, I could say the same for Phoenix when he had a one-off line saying that.
That's true.
Where she was like married to or something like that.
Mm.
Oh, Bat was 22. Ooh. That's
Yeah, so the whole thing with their characters,
yeah. I'm kind of happy that element was cut. It was
Hold on,
first
wait a
show
minute.
goes.
say that again.
Bat's age was 22.
Yeah, right. So the whole thing surrounding her character is not so good.
I like in the wiki, it's like a lot. It just blatantly lets people know this is pedophilia, which is true.
What was that last
like-
part? The wiki lets you know what?
That the wiki blatantly lets you know it's pedophilia. Like there's literally
Say
a
it.
category for.
Say it one more time.
I was saying for wiki here's literally a section for Bat's character that basically kind of explains that all these like relationships with her basically qualify as pedophilia. Which is
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to.
I do hope that in future revisions they fix that. Because
Mhm.
this is like one of the few things with Phoenix Wright that I obviously disagree with.
Yeah,
Like
like
any
it's pretty
reasonable
easy to
person.
disagree with.
And that's like the sad thing, like considering this is my favorite case, that one section like outshines a ton of other stuff, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Let's see what else. Let's see. As a result, Max and Russell's office is entirely for a different purpose during the time of the murder, having been called in for his abrasive behavior towards his fellow performer, sparked by his attack on Ben, rather than asking Russell permission to marry Regina like in the games. Oh, dang.
Yeah, I feel like, again, the whole love triangle dynamic, especially with Max, is really pointless. Like, I feel
Well, I
like,
will say that's what makes the anime better, because they just get rid of that. Like,
Yeah.
in its entirety. It's like, maybe we shouldn't put this on TV.
yeah, for sure. Well, I also feel like, and we're gonna get into it if we look at the rest of these. I like that.
You want to pick up from
fo-
where I left off?
Well, I like that the anime focuses on Max's like goal of like trying to get everyone to be better performers.
That was something in the games that he technically was doing. It's just the love triangle thing obviously screwed up a lot of stuff.
Mm. Well, yeah, but the anime kind of does a better job with it because there's the one change where in the game he was going to give the money to his father or stepfather, but then in the anime they changed it. He was going to give everyone an equal share of the pay raise.
Which honestly, it's a lot better narrative-wise.
Yeah, because it makes him redeemable. Like, not so much a snobby jerk, but like just a person with high standards.
Let's see. Troll's thing with Ben since the beginning, and Max never hides him in Russell's office after their argument. It's alright, small change.
Trillo and Ben do not testify in court, which again I think is fine because once you take out the whole love triangle thing, I feel like having Trillo in there is kind of pointless, even though he was an eyewitness.
I mean, if you didn't really see anything, that wouldn't count that too much.
Mm.
It's like, oh, I saw a thing, and that's it. It's like, not that significant.
Mm.
I guess this does bring up an actual legal question. If someone is an eyewitness, but they didn't see enough, could they be disqualified potentially?
So the issue with witnesses is not so much like how much you know or saw, but just your the relevance of your testimony and then the credibility of the witness. So the only way you could disqualify Trillo is if you could show that one, he's not credible, and two, that whatever he has to say either doesn't have a lot of evidentiary weight or it's just generally irrelevant, which I feel like he would be fine in both prongs.
Yeah, because I still think even though what he saw wasn't significant, he did add some weight, at least to the case.
Yeah, which is a general legal tactic. Like, you don't place all your bets on one piece of evidence necessarily. You generally try to build a case by making lots of little tiny arguments, which it would be something like this.
Alright, so I will say for the anime, Mo's a lot more cooperative, basically, because you kind of have to have him be for the show to continue.
Yeah.
But basically it keeps in contact with his past and makes it a bit more mature to his characters, I guess. I will say in the games he was a bit more funnier, I guess, to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that was kind of funny in the anime. The circus crew reenacts the crime.
Oh yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Like,
it was
just why?
Like,
It's just here.
Which, in court, would technically be circumstantial evidence, which circumstantial evidence is like you don't present actual things that were at the scene of the crime. You just sort of reenact something to create the same effect. So, for example, like if you're an officer that made a big drug bust, right? Circumstantial evidence could be like, I fill a plastic baggie with sugar, and I say, would you say the drugs looked like this? That would be circumstantial evidence.
I just kind of find it funny that they're just like, yeah, this seems like a good idea.
I mean, it did recreate the scene, and it did sort of illustrate the point they were trying to make, but it was definitely very wacky.
I mean, to be fair, it is the circus episode, so I'll give it some weight.
Yeah, they had to be a bit flamboyant, a bit performative.
Yeah, I will say what you mentioned earlier, his motivation's a lot better in the actual episode.
Mm.
Which overall, the anime episode is the better adaptation overall, as far as case-wise goes.
Yeah, I thought this case was really well done.
And this is kind of from someone who's played the game. I honestly think the changes they do make it a lot better, besides what they did with Mo, basically. If they kept that more intact, it would have been a bit better. That's it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I feel like the anime just gets better as it progresses. You said it before, but like, it really does take off in the second core of the first season. So if you can get past that first core and just accept it for what it is, like, it's actually a pretty solid anime.
I will say Regina, like in the courtroom, reacting to everything is a lot better than in the games where she's just crying outside the lobby. Like, what happened? They
Yeah,
made
like
more,
she's still kind of annoying, but I did like that she felt this sense of responsibility and like tried to take action.
I will say the change in the game to anime is a little weird, so I don't know how much I like this change personally, but I think it's fine. So in the game, the judge basically asked Acro if he viewed himself as a victim, but rather in the anime, Phoenix asked that question, which is a little iffy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one.
I feel like it makes more sense from the judge than Phoenix to say that.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it because I don't really feel any particular way about it.
And I guess Galactica and both basically changes when he announces they stay at the Big Berry Circus, which is a little odd, but it's not too crazy.
Yeah, I don't really feel too strong about that one.
Yeah, there's not too much else I would mention for that.
I was going to say, yeah, I feel like I think we've been talking about this case for like 20, 30 minutes. We should probably move on to the big one.
I'm just saying if there's anything else noteworthy. There were some contradictions, actually, but I think they're game exclusive, so we can skip those for now.
All right.
But yeah, we can go to the final case for season 1, actually. And this is a farewell. My turn, Bev. So, would you like to briefly describe the case real quick?
Yeah, this was, in my opinion, probably the most convoluted case because it starts out with like a superhero contest, like who was like the coolest new superhero, and in a surprise twist, one of the superheroes is going to make a press conference confession, but then before the confession, one of the rival superheroes is murdered, and then the other rival superhero is alleged to have murdered him, and it's made pretty clear that he hired an assassin to kill the rival superhero. And then there's a bunch of elements to it, like there was the manager that had worked for both of them, and they dated the manager's sister. And then there was a lot surrounding the assassin, which was either really a butler for the character or was just pretending to be a butler. I was kind of confused about that. And then there was a lot of like really over the top stuff, like Francesca von Karma getting sniped in the shoulder.
If I were to turn any case into a movie, it would be this one. Because I feel like there's so much action, it would turn out really well in theaters.
I actually feel like it hurt the case because I feel like it was almost too convoluted. Like there was just so much going on that I felt like it was a little too ridiculous.
Like, no, I agree with that, but this feels like an epic like finale in a sense, but it went too hard to the wall. It's like
there was just too much. Like the fact that they had the assassin come to court in a radio, I was just like, what are they doing? Like, what? This never happened. Like, as much as I have a suspension of disbelief for Ace Attorney, like, you would never have a witness on, like, just not show their face. Like, you could conceivably have a witness testify, like, on Zoom, for example. I mean, not to go too much of a tangent, but, like, there are cases on Zoom all the time now with COVID. So, I mean, that's just a regular thing. But, like, you would never be, like, in person and just, like, have someone testify on, like, the telephone. That's just unheard of. So there's a lot. This case was a little extra.
I mean, technically phone call cases exist, but I don't think a radio would qualify for the way to testify.
No, because it's like you need to be able to, like, interview and question the witness, and you can't really do that if you, like, can't see them.
Was there a reason why you can do stuff over a phone, but you couldn't do something over a radio, or is that just like how the law's written kind of right now?
You can't have, like, a trial on the phone. You can do certain things in Zoom, and, like, you can do trial in Zoom, but even then it's difficult because there's all kinds of technological issues, and it's a lot less easy. And you just need to be able to see the people that are actually in the case and, like, in the proceedings. So, like, if you have somebody that's, like, not even there, it's like, what is the point of even asking them to come?
I guess that's fair, because someone could impersonate somebody on the phone or whatever. Be like, hey, it's totally me.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is, like, it goes into the credibility. It's like we need to know that, like, it's like there's a lot of stuff, like, you swear the person in, like, you can't swear like a radio in, and like you're saying, it's like it could be anybody. And so,
well, I was trying to think, like, more logically, like, what's some that would cause issues later on. It's like, oh, if the person was lying about who they were, that definitely had screwed too much stuff up.
Right, exactly. And I'll just give you another logistic example. Like, a lot of the times you get held in contempt of court, but I mean, if you're 3 cities away, the court can't really hold you in contempt of court, and you can say whatever you want before they decide to, I don't know, shut off the telephone.
Yeah, I think there is ways that you can do things. The problem is it would definitely be verification, even with today's technology.
Yeah, right. So really the boundary of it is Zoom, because a lot of trials are on Zoom right now. I can tell you that, but I just thought it was really weird. It made for an interesting mechanic to, like, have the radio, and, like, to that extent, like, I am willing to have my suspension of disbelief, but I just remember seeing it and I was just like, that was kind of like when I was like, okay, this case is a little ridiculous.
I mean, I feel like that's how this podcast is. It's kind of fun. It's like, here's a convoluted thing that you want to do in court, and this is something that has some reasonable doubt to it, technically.
Well, there was a lot of it in this case. Like, again, I'll bring it up again. They sniped Francesca von Karma in the, like, just in broad daylight, and then the judge was like, oh, like, does she have a cold? Like, is she like,
well, hear me out, the judge is just stupid. He always has been.
Like, they didn't address it at all. They're just like, "Oh, what? She's not coming."
Yeah.
There was also they also just like did not like the judge at least did not question the fact that Phoenix was like clearly under undue influence from criminals. Like he was clearly not acting in his own capacity, but like it just wasn't addressed until the very end. And at the very end, he was just like, "Are you okay? Like you're not giving a clear answer." He was like, "Oh no, I'm fine."
I'm definitely surprised nothing was tucked up.
Which is why I feel like this was like a little too much. Like it did make for an interesting finale. And there were elements I liked about this case, but I felt like it tried too much to be dramatic.
For sure. I'm pretty sure the secretary person we see, she does show up later in the series. So,
Okay.
what do you think about her introduction? I guess since that is a little important.
I thought her introduction was good because I definitely had the suspicion that she was the murderer because they kind of painted her personality a bit vaguely. But then, of course, they create the story of like her motivation, and it starts to make sense. But at least in the beginning, you kind of suspect that it might have been her.
Well, I kind of feel like Phoenix Wright is kind of like the Japan's version of Scooby Doo in an aspect because you have the guy who did it, then the other person who you think it might did it, then you figure out who it is throughout whatever means.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Like I would say the only one that threw me off would have been the previous case we talked about due to how well they set up Maximilian just being because a massive dick to people.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. But to go back to what I said earlier, so I said earlier that there's two elements to the cases that are like actual facts of the case and how well written it is, and then the main characters and like what's going on with them. And this was like the exact opposite. I wasn't a huge fan of this particular case, but there was a lot of good development of the characters, the main characters anyway.
I didn't enjoy Miss Oldbag coming back. Like,
yeah, that was definitely
I
weird.
felt like they were trying to be funny with her, even in the games, but just didn't come off right.
I felt like it was a bit forced because they had I did like that they had what's his name come back, the actor for the samurai character, because it suggests that like Phoenix and Maya stay in touch with their clients, but other than that, like I felt like the older lady coming back was kind of pointless.
You know who I wish kind of came back, or at least played a bit more prominent role, would be I forget who the camera lady is, but I think she would have been good here. 'Cause it's like a press event, you know? Like, it would make sense for her to be here.
Oh, the journalist girl with the big poofy hair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because they tried to make, what's his name? Like, oh, he's like a gossip journalist now. Although that could have been interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It would have been interesting to see that. I think the
like,
only
she
thing
would have fit, and she could have been like, she could have even like helped like where location where some of these people were, because she could have been like, oh, I was following the paparazzi people. We went over
I think
here.
the only thing stopping her was that she was already kind of a big player in the earlier case, so to have her be in this one again.
That's true.
Yeah.
But then again, when the old bag showed up, so what do we mean? Like,
That's
she's
true.
just here.
Yeah.
And she didn't add anything interesting, relatively.
No, she was like the ventriloquist. She was just an eyewitness. Pretty much it. Could have swapped her with somebody else. What did you think about the sort of dynamic with Edgeworth and Phoenix, where he comes back and Phoenix is like feeling challenged about the dual responsibility of like telling the truth but saving his friend, and then Edgeworth was like kind of challenging him. How did you feel about that?
I like that dynamic because I think what you kind of agree with, Edgeworth is probably the best character, at least in my opinion, because I think he's a lot more well written. He get a really good idea of who what his backstory is compared to Phoenix, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, he's more like a bit more deeper of a character, where Phoenix like, I'm gonna be an attorney. He just
Yeah,
does the
for sure.
hijinks.
I think you're absolutely right. What
But I
about?
think that's a different. Like, I don't like mind if people like Phoenix or Edgeworth, but I personally think Edgeworth has a better like build compared to other characters that I personally like.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with you. There's just more. He's just got more layers to him than Phoenix. Phoenix is a relatively more innocent character, I would say.
There's only a few scenarios I would say like where the opposite's true. Like I would say like bring up JoJo again, since I've been watching a lot recently. Dio, I don't like that his motivation isn't explained well enough in part one, despite how enjoyable a character he is. He kind of feels like, I'm evil because I'm kind of evil. I hate rich people. That's kind of how it is in part one.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I know that in the games and stuff, I believe a light novel explains a bit more about his character, but as an anime only person, it's kind of hard to put up with that, because that means I have to do more research,
Remind me to give you my interpretation of Dio in part one, because I think if I tell you my thoughts on Dio, it'll make perfect sense. But that's a
we'll
complete
do that after
sidebar.
this. We're pretty close.
That's a complete sidebar. What did you think about Francesca von Karma's sort of character arc following the results of this trial?
It's okay, like, I think Edgeworth had better resolve for his final case thing that he was doing.
Start over.
I was saying, like, I thought her resolve was okay, but I would say Edgeworth had a better resolve for his case in the first game.
So you thought her resolve was okay, and then what? What did you say?
I just think Edgeworth is a little better from the first game, personally. Okay. Like how he concludes himself as a character to an extent.
Okay. Personally, I thought it was handled really well, because she was a pretty like flat character. She was just like kind of like Edgeworth 2.0.
I think that's the issue with her initial character. She just feels kind of like an Edgeworth 2.0.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really find herself, at least in this series. I will say in the Edgeworth investigation series, her character's a lot more fleshed out to an extent. But I think it's more because she plays a more prominent role in that game.
Yeah, right.
At the time, because she's basically like a special ops for like international people, like an investigation thing. I don't know if there's an equivalent. our universe, obviously.
Yeah, but I do like the element to her character they add at the end where she feels like she has this she feels like she has this legacy she has to meet the expectation of, because she's a Von Karma, that she has to meet certain expectations as a prosecutor. And Edgeworth basically tells her, like, trust me, been there, done that. You're better off just taking a different approach to trials.
I think that really helps. It kind of shows Edgeworth as someone who kind of cheated in several trials. He's kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should just try to win honestly, kind of.
Yeah, right. So I really like that part of her character, and it made me excited to potentially see her again, whether it be in season 2 or should I play the games and then continue past this material, see her in later games.
I think it depends if you ever want to try the games out, since this is the second game that we're covering. I will say that as far as getting a feel how the investigation element goes, that might be a fun thing to at least do for one of the games to give you a feel how things go, because I believe only the first and second game you get like new mechanics, quote unquote. But after that, third games, there's not really much new added to it, technically.
Okay.
Because the first game's like standard trial investigation stuff, but second game is interesting because it adds this it's the psych lock system that we saw later on.
Alright.
And that's basically kind of like you kind of interrogating someone when questioning them, which is fine.
Alright.
Because I don't know how else you'd represent that in a game, you know, like a lie detector or whatever. That could have been worked, but it's made
I see what you mean.
You know?
Yeah, right.
It's fine. I know there's other attorney games that are supposed to come out, so maybe those might be worth looking into, but
are they making new Ace Attorney games?
They did release the Sherlock Holmes ones recently. That got localized.
Oh, nice.
They had to change Sherlock Holmes to Sherlock Sloans because copyright issues.
Yeah, and another sidebar, but just for a quick reference, if you want to know one of the most notoriously uncooperative copyright holders in all of human civilization, it is the I don't know the official name. I think it might just be the author, but the estate that owns the rights to Sherlock Holmes is unambiguously the worst, the most unscrupulous copyright holder in the history of copyright law. Like, they are completely uncooperative. They do not work with anybody, and anybody and anyone who ever wants to work on anything remotely Sherlock Holmes has to deal with 1,001 headaches because of them, because they are so unwilling to compromise to the Sherlock Holmes IP.
So, well, to explain, it's very convoluted. The last book was basically written at a very odd time for U.S. copyright history. So outside the U.S., Japan can use Sherlock Holmes, but the U.S. specifically, you can't use it for until whatever year, which is very weird.
Right. It's just the way copyright law and trademark law and all that works, because just a matter of like jurisdiction. Like, it's domestic, so that when you go to a foreign country, the law doesn't necessarily apply. There are international treatises in place, but I mean, generally speaking, you only have protection in like the country that you have the copyright.
Yeah, I will say it's funny. Someone from the U.S. could be writing a book, but publish it like in the UK or somewhere and be legal, but they can't publish in the US because how the laws are written.
But in all seriousness, I'll just say it again. Like, if you were to make a YouTube video of top 10 worst copyright holders or or top 10 like most like biggest dicks in copyright, for lack of better words, it would be number one would be the estate for Sherlock Holmes. Like, they are just the worst one because they give everyone trouble. Like, if you can, for basically any movie or book you can name that wasn't directly Sherlock Holmes, guarantee the estate gave them a headache and fought them on it. But again, that's we just went on a big tangent. I just thought I'd point it out because I've taken a fair bit of time studying copyright law, and it's something that always comes up.
Let's see. Surprisingly, this one had plenty of references to previous cases, which is kind of nice considering it's a finale. So I do like that element.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was nice that the main characters were kind of hanging out with the actor for the samurai.
And I guess from what you said, it would make sense that Phoenix might keep in touch with previous clients, especially like a celebrity, I guess, in this universe.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, not necessarily for defense attorneys, because it's not. You would hope that they don't have to defend against criminal allegations again. But I mean, generally speaking, lawyers like to facilitate long-lasting relationships with clients. So it would make sense that, generally speaking, a lawyer would like to keep in touch with their clients.
I mean, to me, I just find it funny because that's just how the Phoenix Wright universe kind of works. It's like, yeah, you can be hired for murder cases if you want to.
Yeah, which is funny in this one, right? Because even Gumshoe was like, wait, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm just here. And then like the next day, he's like, wait, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm defending the guy now. He's like, okay.
I kind of wish Gumshoe just say, well, isn't that a conflict of interest? And Wright's like, yeah, nah, this is fine. It's like, well, okay, again, I guess you're the lawyer. Just moves on. Like a brief reference, like, this might be a problem. And Fane's like, nope. Seems completely normal.
Say that again, you broke up.
Alright. I was thinking of a joke where, like, Gumshoe walks in and it's like, well, this seems pretty peculiar. Like, don't you think it's a conflict of interest, Mr. Wright? And he's like, nah, it's fine. And he's like, okay, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to question you.
Yeah, the conflict of interest is interesting.
Like, they could have thrown that in as a joke, and that would have been funny.
But yeah, that's everything I have to say about it. I don't know if there's anything you want to say before we look at the anime differences.
Not really. I will say this is definitely one of my... Like, I like the case as far as story goes. As far as to follow it, it's very convoluted. There's so many moving pieces in this case.
Yeah, and we said that before. It kind of just tried too hard to be dramatic, I feel.
Which makes sense, like, considering this is a finale, but the issue is that there's too much going on in one case.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Like, I feel like the assassin was unnecessary. you could have cut him out, and we still would have had a pretty epic case to an extent.
I don't think it was unnecessary. In fact, I kind of liked the ending where.
Well, I'm saying he still could have been there, but just not have as big of a role as he did.
Yeah, it was definitely handled weird, or like it's like, oh well, I'm gonna be like really involved in the case, but I also have this moral code. So like, if you betray me, then I'm just gonna conveniently betray you. But it was definitely rewarding to see the character who played the whatever it was, the new samurai, be placed in that catch-21 where it's like, well, you can be free, but you're probably going to get killed by the assassin. Or you can go to jail and not get killed by an assassin, but you're going to be in jail.
Which, to me, I found that really funny, as far as
I
how
thought it
that
was
setup
hilarious.
was. But like I said, this feels more like movie material, not like this episodic format. There's just too much going on. They could have drawn it out a little longer, maybe.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying for sure.
Like, give it like an extra 1 or 2 episodes, I feel like maybe it would have helped.
Wow, there are a lot of anime changes.
Yeah, let's get onto those, actually. There's a lot. Let's see, Starry School students were referred as Just Academy Class 4-2, and it's not that important, honestly. It's just a small name change.
Oh, so here's something you said. So Hart is the photographer, right, with the big hair?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said, no. What did you say before? That Hart could have been.
Well, she was
previous case,
absent
or
in the anime, but Larry just showed up for some reason. And
Okay,
took
so
the picture.
yeah, that's interesting that they did that. I wonder why. Maybe they thought what I was saying, that like she had already been in another case, so having her in this one might have been redundant. I don't know. That's
Which
weird.
I kind of agree, but I'm saying her character makes more sense than Larry, though.
It makes perfect sense because that's what she does. Whereas like Larry is like suddenly like a gossip journalist. Yeah, that's weird.
Let's see. There are just a few slight changes for how the Grand Hero Pricks was done. Nothing too major noteworthy. Let's see. Powers doesn't present right in Pearls with the transceiver. Larry does, and he was there when the killer answers, and Powers doesn't testify in court. I don't know. I feel like he could have testified, though.
Yeah, I can see that.
Let's see. There's no mention of a tracking device planted in Gumshoe's coat by Von Karma. I guess that could have been important, though. That's fine. They skipped it. Oh yeah, the shooting thing was an anime-only thing, actually. In the games, it was kind of just mentioned she was shot.
Which, again, adds to the drama.
So I kind of like that change, at least. They kind of showed
I
it.
feel like it works better.
And Edgeworth makes his return in the beginning of the first trial rather than during the investigation before. I will say it makes a lot more sense context-wise, instead of him showing up halfway takeover. Because how cases are handled when we brought up the Grossberg thing, it's like it makes more sense if like Phoenix gets involved immediately, not after you sign papers and stuff, whatnot.
Yeah, right.
see, Andrew's codependency issue was removed, with her closest to impacts explained by having the latter be Andrew's older sister. I don't know. I didn't see too much big issue with that change personally.
Yeah, I didn't really care, to be honest.
Let's see, the first trial day ends with Adrian Andrews refusing to testify, as opposed to her confessing to the obstruction of justice.
I thought it was interesting enough. Again, I don't really think it would have changed too much.
Yeah, it seems like they just did a couple of small changes from what we're seeing so far. This one I wish they did change for Shelly the Killer's calling card. Instead of it being discussed inside the trial itself, it was discussed outside the courtroom for some reason.
Yeah.
Because that's an important piece of evidence if a serial killer or an assassin leaves a calling card.
Yeah, I feel like in the anime they're just kind of like, oh, so that means it was this guy, and here's this guy that we've been following.
Like, I wish, like, Phoenix brought it up and it's like, hey, give me more time to investigate or something. And
Yeah,
be like, he could have done it.
Mm.
And just be like, oh, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
See, in the anime, the note was confirmed to have been written by Celeste Andrews. In the game, the note was written by Juan Ordina. I believe that was the actor who wrote it. At least I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Let's see, Maya's role in the case is more significant. She finds a CD containing a recording of the killer strangling Cordana while trapped in the on-guard house. Uses on-guard recording equipment to make a copy of the disc and leaves it behind. A jewel case for the police to discover and eventually search the place. And leaving the card was a sketch of right space inside the jewel case that Von Karma takes when she obtains the evidence. I feel like that could cause some actual problems if she was the one who made the recording that made that for evidence.
Well, you have to remember she only made a copy.
That is true. So she still had the original with her. It would have been okay, I assume.
Well, no.
It's not
So,
tampered.
the assassin had the original, but for whatever reason, she was able to make a copy and then leave it for Gumshoe or whoever came to find her.
I'm kind of curious why wouldn't she want to leave the original?
I just don't think she. I think it just. I mean, it's smart. It's like you don't know what's going to happen to it. You don't want them to notice it's missing, so make a copy because it was in like some sort of machine. So she just made a copy of it.
I assume in court that could be justification for her to copy it.
Yeah, I mean, evidence is evidence. It doesn't matter if it's a copy. Like when you're in discovery and you want a document, it doesn't matter if it's a copy. It just matters that you give them the same document.
Let's see, in the games, the Cyclock first appeared in Reunion Turnabout, but in the anime, they made their first appearance in this case. Unlike the games, there's no exposition what they are, which I wish they explained that a lot better for the anime, because anyone who's watching an episode would be very confused why this is here.
Yeah, right.
So that's again one negative change. I guess they could have done something else to get around it, made like a lie detector system, I would assume.
Mhm.
But they didn't do that. let's see. Von Karma only presents the video footage of the killer murdering Verdun with a pistol. He used to shoot her in the shoulder, and the bellboy uniform worn by the killer are not seen. She's also wearing Gumshoe's coat instead of carrying the evidence, and has an arm and a sling band around her right arm. Is later removed sometime before Edgeworth meets her at the airport. I honestly don't care about that change.
Yeah.
Build over time, it would have made sense. Because you don't know how much time passed, technically, in between those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
See, rather choosing to present the footage to the killer asks what's going on from the transceiver nearby, causing Phoenix to show him the footage. This is mostly due to the fact that this is an anime, not a game. That's pretty fair.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. On Guard gets a unique speech bubble for the anime. That's nothing too crazy.
I thought that was pretty funny. It was like really random, but really funny.
Let's see. Unlike the games, the judge declared Matt on Guard guilty with the word in front of him as confetti falls. This marks the only time in the whole series when someone is declared guilty and confetti falls. That's
Yeah, it was
pretty
weird, right? Because it's like, well, you're defendant, so you definitely just lost, but it's what you wanted because you knew it was the right answer.
Yeah, I will say it's funny. It's a situation where someone loses that Wright has with them. To a degree. It's like, yeah, that sucks. But it's whatever.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, Mind Right reunite the police station rather than the defendant lobby. That honestly makes a lot more sense personally.
Mm-hmm.
That he would do that. And apparently Pearl's still channeling Maya at this point, which that's fine, nothing too crazy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just have Edgeworth basically bailing to go to the airport to look for Von Karma.
Yeah, right. Which I already said I thought that was a cool scene.
I will say that this could be really good setup for the investigation games if they put in that time period, theoretically.
Yeah,
It's
right.
a little iffy when those take place, at least from my experience. There might be a proper timeline I could look at, but from what people told me, some people say it takes place in the middle of this game, which kind of doesn't make sense because Von Karma would have to be investigating and being a prosecutor.
Yeah.
So it would make more sense after this game, theoretically, for it to occur.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that Edgeworth brings up Wright instead of Andrews in the conversation at the airport. It's been
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Wright has his monologue thing at the end. It's all right. It's just anime only thing. Him saying like, "Yeah, the thing is over, and it might be another thing happens. Who knows?"
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's pretty much it, right? I mean, we're on to season 2.
Yeah, we're on to season 2 overall. I would say at this half of season 1, I would say it's slightly better in some elements, but I will say it's a little iffy. I think season 1 has a really strong character with Edgeworth if you understand what he's doing. But then again, you have to have some believability due to it being an anime, obviously. And I think the biggest issue I have with this series is that, at least with this half of the season 1, is that Fun Karma, they could have done a bit more with her. They could have made her character a bit more broad than what it was, personally.
Mm-hmm.
The Cyclock thing was really stupid, what they did. But I do like how they changed Big Top to turn out to be a lot better case than the games, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it has a decent, strong, like, it has a strong second and third case versus with the first half of season 1. It had a good finale, and it had a few good other cases, technically, which is interesting to think about, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I guess this is where we'll end things off, and we'll pick up season 2 when we get the chance here, probably next month some point. So anyways, thank y'all for listening to the podcast. If you have ideas for what else we should look into, maybe we could make fun of Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. I remember watching that back in the day. And I think we could make a decent podcast with that as well. Just doing episode by episode, maybe.
Oh my god.
And yeah, I think overall I've been enjoying this podcast. I think in the beginning we had more of a stronger legal element. Now we're more on a review edge type thing, because a lot of the cases are either kind of like this current one where it's super convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
It gets insane, or it's more like moderate and there's like a few things that couldn't fix. But definitely the second half of season 1, you can tell they're ramping things up, and we'll find out for season 2 how much even more things get convoluted. But yeah, is there anything else you want to mention?
No, other than in season 2 we get to the weird amnesia thing that you thought we were supposed to be talking about in the last
That is true.
So we finally get to
I
address
accidentally spoiled that.
And why you don't like it.
Oh yeah. There is an alternative endings actually for this case in particular.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not going to spoil those in case you ever play the game. So,
all right.
But basically, what happens is that when you're in the evidence presenting stage, if you present basically something to the wrong person, that's when stuff basically goes downhill.
Okay, gotcha.
And presumably, knowing the killer, you probably know what happens to an extent.
Yeah, right.
So it's a really dark ending, but it's kind of nice for a visual novel that has that as an option, technically. That can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the anime couldn't show that. It could have been a nice OVA, though, if they did it that way.
Yeah, right.
Where Phoenix kind of just screws up the case to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that could have had a nice tension thing. But yeah, we're getting things here, and we'll check y'all up with season 2. So, anyways, we'll see you later.
Peace.